crude oil markets today were sent shooting higher on an announcement from the Saudi Arabians. So guys, just for some context, the Saudi Arabians, as part of their OPEC plus commitment, part of the 9.7 million barrels per day that all these OPEC plus nations have pledged to cut, the Saudis themselves were cutting around 3.8 million barrels per day. But today they came out and said, we're going to do another 1 million on top of that. So obviously 1 million barrels per day, in the grand scheme of the oil market, it's not a huge amount, although we did see that positive reaction in the oil market. So WTI, before the June WTI contract, trading around $24, and then on the news spiked to, well, about 25.50 at its highs, now trading around the 25 level at the moment. But yeah, like I was saying, in the grand scheme of things, 1 million barrels per day additional cut isn't huge, but it's more about the gesture from the Saudis. Okay, the Saudis have demonstrated today that they are keen to go the extra mile to get oil markets back into balance. And this sends a message, a signal to the rest of OPEC that means the rest of OPEC are going to be more likely to comply with their various pledges to this OPEC deal. We've even seen today a couple of other countries have followed in the Saudis' footsteps. So the UAE, they're doing 100,000 barrels per day in additional cuts. Remember, they're a much smaller nation, so 100,000 barrels per day for them is about a similar, margin in terms of like percentages, slightly less, I think, actually, than the Saudis. But either way, Kuwait, they're doing 80,000 barrels in additional cuts as well. So guys, just wait over the next couple of days, see if some more of these OPEC plus members come out. To be honest, I wouldn't expect any additional cuts from the US or the Russians, because they're tightly locked in this battle for market share that they just never seem to want to cut output for. But from some of these other countries, maybe, well, who knows, maybe Nigeria, Oman, you never know, any of these other OPEC countries. But what does this all mean for the oil market? Well, to be honest, because the Saudis, they're like the big guns, they're the big producer, I wouldn't expect any more of these output cuts from any other OPEC nations really lead to a spike like what we saw today. However, it is just generally another reason to be more bullish on the oil market. Because remember, guys, all that negative price turmoil we saw last month, that's well behind us. Because now we're heading into June, and June is when all these big production cuts come into force, so supply is going to be constricted a lot in June. Moreover, on the coronavirus side of things, it appears we're past the peak, fingers crossed. All these economies reopening, which means fuel demand has been going higher, and that is why crude oil markets have been able to recover reasonably well in the last, like 2 or 3 weeks. We're up from, what WTI trading around 10, or even negative that crazy day, but around 10 to, mid 20s. So, I mean, for me, I do expect this gradual rise in the crude oil markets to continue amid this more favourable conditions, and that should have a positive effect, do not forget, on CAD and NOK, the two G10 FX currencies that are most correlated with crude oil prices, because remember, they're big exporters. That is pretty much it from me for now, and I will see you in the next one.